and welcome to Enjoying Films with Eugene Stevens. I'm your host, Eugene Stevens. And this week, I've been given a little bit more time to talk about the purpose of the program. Viewers may know me from my regular column in the newspaper, also called Enjoying Films. In today's world, we're all still deep in our remembrance of the war in Vietnam, and all too many critics have become jaded and cynical. They would rather tell you what films not to like and why you shouldn't watch them. They forget that every storyteller, every director, writer, and actor have done their best, along with hundreds or even thousands of others, to make the film the best they could. Rather than look for everything wrong in films, I encourage you to look inside yourself and find the inner child who grew up enjoying films, and let him or her have a good experience. When I was in my young 20s, I hated everything. I was convinced I knew how stories should be told, leaving no room for filmmakers to tell me the story they want to tell me. After some deep personal losses, I realized I wasn't living my life with openness to joy. That's why I started my column, and that's why I'm doing this now. And I pledge not to talk about films I don't enjoy, unless I feel they have themes that are too important to ignore. The worst one can do is to employ a little Midwest kindness and just say, I also saw this film. Partially, this is to keep myself from being too negative, but also to allow you, the viewer, to develop your own opinions about pictures I did not enjoy. Also, I need to acknowledge that the enjoyment of art is totally up to each individual's taste, and my least favorite films are someone else's favorites. Who am I to tell you that you're wrong? The only exception I will make to this rule is if it is a horribly revisionist film that glorifies racism or sexism. For instance, Gone with the Wind or Birth of a Nation, considered great films in their time, and Gone with the Wind still considered a classic to many. But they tell a false picture of our racist past, and it should not be celebrated. Even films, almost universally recognized as great, are not sacred texts and should not be treated as such. So, if a film comes along, even if it is well made, well produced, even if I don't like it, if I feel that it is harmful in some way, I will talk about that. Also, I hope to incorporate letters sent from Johnny. Now, Johnny is a name I'll use for a young boy who often writes in asking questions about films. It gives me an opportunity to highlight some of the less visible jobs on film sets. Each episode, which I hope can happen roughly weekly, I'll highlight some films still rolling through theaters. You may have to drive a little distance to a city like Chicago or St. Louis, maybe Des Moines or Iowa City to catch some of them, but I'll make sure to recommend only the best and most interesting ones for you. This week we're talking about an unusual picture, one adapted from a stage play, and one that asks the question, what if only you wish to see the truth? Coming out in January of this year, 1975 now, the film Galileo, directed by Joseph Losey and starring Topol, perhaps most known for his role in the 1971 film Fiddler on the Roof. It is based on the play by Bertolt Brecht, translated by Charles Laughton, and adapted for the screen by Barbara Bray and Joseph Losey. And normally I would reserve this segment for the end, but I'll talk about it now since we're here. Credits for film are very interesting. Usually the people credited are just the ones that wrote the screenplay, but sometimes it is an adapted work, such as a novel, or in this case, a play. Also, if the play was written in another country, it is often translated for American audiences first. Sometimes you'll get a story by credit, and that usually means that the person getting the credit contributed to the story in some way, but didn't write the screenplay. Now, Galileo is a real story, one that many of us know, because all of us in our science classes have learned a little bit about astronomy. It's a real story about a man who was, in the day, considered by many to be a heretic. The film Galileo shows that the line between madness and genius is sometimes just a function of timing. Like the Towering Inferno, this film is about a man who knows the truth but can't change the minds of those around him. He can't even get people to gaze through his telescope, a very literal and metaphorical struggle simultaneously. As we know, Galileo's ideas spawned modern astronomy, but those ideas brought him into direct conflict with the religious authorities of the day. In the end, he hid his work to preserve his own life. One wonders if he was brave, cowardly, shrewd, or perhaps some combination of those things. Now, one thing that should be pointed out, as this is a stage play adaptation, the film does maintain some of the staging and costuming of a stage play. This may be jarring to some viewers, as the scenes are introduced by a trio of young soprano boys who sing the setting for you. Some of the costumes may seem ridiculous or over the top, but again, these preserve the look and feel of a stage play rather than a film. Also in this film, I would like to highlight the work of Steve Birtles, the gaffer. They are responsible for lighting the sets so that the camera gets enough light so the director gets the picture he wants you to see. Dear Eugene, I understand that the director of the film is in charge of telling everybody what to do. But what does an editor do for a movie? I see the word on shows and movies often and wondered. Thanks, Johnny. Now, Johnny, that's a good question. An editor's job is very interesting, but it all starts with the process of making the film. Movies are shot on long reels of film. You roll them out, they're very, very long. And on a film, a director might have multiple takes of the same actor saying the same words, and he hopes to find the best performances. What the editor does is he cuts the film into chunks and tapes the best performances together to make scenes, and together those scenes make the reels of the final film. An editor's job is very important, oftentimes working hand in hand with the director to get the exact right number of frames for a shot, to give the exact feeling. Sometimes the long shot can give you the awe and majesty of a natural wonder, but sometimes fast editing can make a film feel frenetic, fast-paced, give tension to the scene. Thanks for writing, Johnny. And as always, as I leave you, I encourage you to reach deep down and remember, when your world was simpler, when you could still be amazed, when movies fully captivated your imagination and filled your heart with joy, remember the you were back when, and then you'll be enjoying films.